All right, welcome 8th grade students to your video on how to find slope using a table. We're also going to focus on identifying equations that have a vertical, which means up and down, and horizontal graph. Okay, so here's an example like you guys did in class today. So we've got an equation where y equals 2x, and I want to find the solutions to the equation. Another way to say that is to graph the equation. We learned in class today that as you find the solution points, your x's and y's, you are actually creating the line of the graph. So those are synonyms, they are the same thing. So I'm going to create an x and y table. I'm going to pick any values I want for x and y. Personally, I always start out with a 0. That's probably the easiest thing to plug in. And then you're going to actually do the math. So I'm going to plug in 0 up here for x. And I know when the 2 and the x are next to each other, that means multiply. So I've got 2 times 0, which will equal 0. So my y in this case is 0. Hopefully you guys weren't too surprised by that, because last year we learned that when you're not adding anything to an equation, that means our equation is proportional, which means it does go through the origin. Okay, another easy point to pick here is 1. So I'm going to plug 1 in for x. So now I've got 2 times 1 equals 2. So my y in this situation is 2. As we talked about in class today, you guys need to make sure that you're always doing 3 points. Now, the obvious next point to pick would be 2, but you could pick something else like 3, 4, -1. So I'm just going to pick a 2. I'm going to plug it into my equation. So now I've got 2 times 2. So my y in this situation would be 4. So those are my solutions to the equation. There are many, many more, but those are the 3 I picked. I'm going to come over and I'm going to graph. So I'm going to go over 1, up 2, and then over 2 and up 4, and then connect my points. I don't have a ruler available, so I'm just going to freehand this, but you guys would obviously be using a ruler to create nice straight lines. Now, because we talked about there's a lot more solutions, we're going to put arrows on the end of our graph to show that our line continues in both directions. Okay, here's another example. Because of this -5 here at the end, I can tell that my graph is not going to be proportional. We learned that last year, which means my equation is not going to go through the origin. So again, I want to find the solutions. So I'm going to pick an x value to plug in, and I'm going to get out the y value. So again, the easiest one to start with is a 0. So I'm going to do -4 times 0, which equals 0. And then I have to subtract 5 or add -5, that's the same thing. So my y in this situation is -5. Okay, I'm going to try -1 this time. So now I've got -4 times -1 equals, negative times negative is a positive. So now I've got 4 minus 5 or plus -5 equals -1. And I do need to make sure that I have a 4th point. So now I'm going to do, oops, that was a positive one. Nope, I did do a -1. Okay, so now I'm going to do, let's do +1. So now I've got -4 times 1 equals -4 minus 5, or if we KCC'd plus -5, so that would equal -9. So now I have my 3 points. I'm going to come over here and plot them. So 0, -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1, -1, and 1, -9. Okay, again, we connect our points, noticing that all of our solutions are being connected, which actually create the line of our graph. Okay, one more example like that. This one's a little bit different because the number in front of my x is a fraction. So I like to make my life as easy as possible. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pick a number that'll make my fraction disappear. So my x is going to be multiples of the denominator. So I'm going to start off, well, first I'm going to start off with 0. So now I've got -1/4 times 0 is 0 plus 3 is 3. Now I'm going to use multiples of 4 so that when I multiply by my fraction, the fraction cancels out. So I'm going to use 4 and 8. So now -1/4 times 4 will cross simplify. So that'll equal -1 plus 3 is going to equal 2. So there's my second point. I need one more. So now I've got -1/4 times 8 And I can cross simplify again. So now I'm left with -2 plus 3 will equal 1. And now I will graph my points. So 0, 1, 2, 3 is my first point. Second point is 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. And my last point, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, is 8, 1. Connect your points, put your arrows at the end to show that there are more solutions than just the 3 that we graphed. And there are our solutions and our graph. Now this one asks what the equation would look like. So they're asking us to go backwards. But this one's actually a pretty simple one because I'm noticing I have a horizontal graph here. So the only thing I know is that at every point on this line, my y value is always 4. So like here it's -4, 4. Here it would be -3, 4, -2, 4, -1, 4, 0, 4. So I know that no matter where I am on this line, the y is going to equal +4. So that's the equation. Anytime we have a horizontal line, you're going to have a y equals. Now we've got a vertical line, so I'm going to assume that this is going to be an x equals, but let's prove it. So what I see here is that my value here is 4, 0. So here would be 4, 1, 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4. So no matter where you go on this line, my x is equal to 4. So that's the equation. All right, one last example. So now we've got a word problem where they're giving us the equation. So what we need to do is we're still going to graph this even though it's a word problem. So we're still going to plug in our x and y values. So I'm going to pick 0 for x because it's the easiest. So 0 times 2 is 0 plus 4 is 4. I'm going to go ahead and plug in 1. So now I've got 2 times 1 is 2 plus 4 is 6. And I'm going to go ahead and throw in a negative in there. Actually, I'm not, because in this situation, negative days aren't possible. So let's stick with a 2. So now I've got 2 times 2 is 4 plus 4 is 8. So I would graph these over here on my axis. Let me create my axis. That's a horrible line. So I've got 0, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 6, and 2, 8. Now in this situation, when we draw our arrows, we're only going to draw an arrow going up because the x situation here stands for days, so I can't go back here into negative days. All right, make sure you guys have filled out your notes and bring them to class with you tomorrow so you can get credit for your homework.